Well, welcome to the Easy Odds Premier League videocast for another weekend of Premier League forecasting from the two boys. Tom is warmly welcomed back into the fold after his tour of Europe, having managed to amass a box full of Belgian chocolates, having drunk several yards of ale as well, and possibly on his way back picked up a windmill or two. How are you, Tom?
All right, thanks, Paul. Yeah, I did all those things you just said. Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. Good to have you with us. And Simon, of course, Simon Hopper is with me, the esteemed editor of easyodds.com, after a cracking week last week, and that far away from another value nap bet going in. Oh.
Yeah, Tom and I were just discussing this earlier. Unfortunately, Aston Villa tend to retreat deeper and deeper. I was getting more nervous, but yeah, very annoying.
There you go, that's one of those things. Keep on going for value, don't run with the herd, and you'll come out with a profit throughout the season if, of course, you listen to the Easy Odds Premier League videocast as we go through the year. Let's get straight into the action. We're going to start off with the Hawthorns. It's West Brom versus Arsenal. It's 13th versus 8th. West Brom, the joint highest goal scorers at home outside the top 10 in the league, so they can find the back of the net, Tom. The problem is against Arsenal, it's likely to be quite an open game, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, most probably is. And the problem with West Brom is that their home form is absolutely abysmal. That is a big problem, isn't it? I think since the start of last season, they've won 5 home games. I think I was on this podcast a few weeks ago and I said that they shouldn't be odds on to win any home Premier League game when they were 5-6 to beat Crystal Palace, and they did a 90th minute penalty to draw that match there. And you can't really see them win this game. The problem is, I think a lot of people will probably be backing Arsenal. And I do agree, to be honest with them, but West Brom do draw a lot of matches, tend to be against the bottom half sides, though they don't do particularly well against the big teams. So I actually think Arsenal, just to win this game, you can get 1.92 on the exchanges, is a fair enough price. As I said, that West Brom's home form is awful since the start of last season. Their only home win in the league so far this season was against Burnley. This was a Burnley side I think had lost every match so far in the Premier League at that point. So that was no real surprise there. They're odds on to win that game, and they did so pretty easily. They've also lost 2 in a row now as well. You can understand them losing to Chelsea last weekend, especially when they had 10 men for most of the match. But the match before that, they lost 2-0 at home pretty tamely to Newcastle, and they were exposed at the back quite a few times there, mostly from crosses as well. And Arsenal will probably be looking at that quite a lot. I know Arsenal aren't in the best of form themselves. I think it's something like their worst start to a league season in 30 years or something like that. But they're a much better team than West Brom. I think we'd all agree that. And a bit of a morale boost in midweek. They beat Dortmund as you'd expected them to, 2-0. They've won a pretty moderate side so far this season. They won 3-0 at Villa and 2-0 at Sunderland, who are both similar quality to West Brom. So I'd simply just be backing Arsenal to win this one at 1.92, or you can get 10-11 on their fixed odds,
Which is 1.90 reoccurring, and there's so many teams that near the top or in the middle of the Premier League that just are not performing to what we thought was going to be their full potential at the beginning of the season, and Arsenal are one of those. And if for some reason Arsene Wenger loses this game, the boardroom could come back and act in a really negative way, or many Arsenal fans would call it a positive way. But I'll put the same question to you as I did to Tom. West Brom are going to come out and try and win this game. If they try and soak up pressure from Arsenal, it's a done deal, isn't it? Which it has the makings of a really attractive game, actually.
Could be a good game, yeah. Arsenal are at 10-11 shots, as Tom alluded to, which I think is the right price. Their long-term away form, they tend to win just over half of their away games, 52% since the start of last season, 13 from 25. And 10-11 is a very sort of similar price, akin to 52%. So
but mainly against teams like West Brom, though.
Exactly. Well, West Brom, I'd say, pretty much an average Premier League team at the moment. They're 13th in the league. I mean, admittedly, they're not in good form. No. And I napped West Brom to go down at the start of the season, so their recent poor form was encouraging to me. Their straight defeats to 0. I thought they were poor at Chelsea, poor against Newcastle. So no reason to suggest backing a shock win or to back Arsenal. I think the match ought to about right. But as you alluded to, Paul, goals look to be on the agenda at over 2.5 goals, which is the same price as an Arsenal win, which is 10-11. Not a terrible price at all. The Hawthorns historically is a place to go for goals. 8 of their last 11 home Premier League games, West Brom have gone overs, going back into last season as well. 4 of 6 this term. This season under Alan Irvine, they're averaging 3.33 goals per game in the Hawthorns, scoring 10 of those and conceding 10. So it's a nice mix of decent attacking and terrible defending, which is always good for these sort of bets. Arsenal are now overs in their last 3 successive league games. They're not defending well at all. I think the ongoing absence of Laurent Koscielny is a big factor in that. He might be back for this weekend, but he certainly won't be fully match fit. Either way, they're still not defending very well, but obviously a big threat going forward, and they've scored in 16 of their last 17 Premier League games. I was at the Emirates on Saturday, and they were terrible.
Did they really?
Oh, dearie me. And the fans don't help either. I think they're better playing away from home. Maybe that's why they've got such a good away record, so the fans are very bad. But also, two more things for this bet, Paul. Olivier Giroud's back. He scored a lovely goal at the Emirates.
That's super finish, isn't it?
And didn't play in midweek because he was left out of the squad, which was a bit of a massive oversight from Arsenal's admin team. And 5 of the last 6 Premier League meetings between these teams at the Hawthorns have gone over 2.5 goals. So historically, this fixture is akin to our bet. So over 2.5 goals at 10 to 11, I think is a good bet.
Goals galore at the Hawthorns on Saturday afternoon. Let's move on to our second game here on the Easy Odds Premier League videocast. We're going to go to the Stadium of Light, where Sunderland in 14th play top of the league Chelsea. And courtesy of their hall at Goodison Park, Chelsea have scored as many goals on the road as they have at Stamford Bridge, Hobbs.
Yeah, and Chelsea are getting to sort of prices now where I'm getting very keen to oppose them, Paul. I mean, 43 to 100 to win an away Premier League game. 43 to 100 Chelsea to win at a team that have lost 1 home game in the league this season. It's too short a price for me, and if Chelsea keep winning, the more I'm going to oppose them, to be honest, because I'll just keep getting shorter and shorter. The match odds imply, I mean, you sort of look at over 70% chance of Chelsea winning according to the bookies. Overall, since Mourinho returned, his away league win ratio is 56%. This season it's 66%. I'm not seeing 70% plus anywhere. I don't think they should be any shorter than 1 to 2. I mean, I actually initially had them as 10 to 11 shots at the start of the week. I think it's a very short price. Well, Sunderland have lost 1 home game this season. They just draw a lot. They don't lose many. Obviously, they have an okay record against big teams as well. They've beaten Man City a lot recently at home. Starting to recover from their poor start. They're on a nice little 3-game unbeaten run. They won 3-1 at Palace recently.
Is that a record?
Might be under Poyet, yeah. They've only shipped 2 goals in those 3 games, so since the 8-0 at Southampton, they've just started to sort themselves out now. I think obviously it's a post-Champions League game for Chelsea. I know it's a 5-0 stroll. Schalke were absolutely terrible, but still they had to travel to Germany and travel back, which is a negative. And Sunderland have actually won their last 2 games against Chelsea. They won 2-1 in the League Cup at the Stadium of Light last season, and famously they ended Mourinho's home league unbeaten run last season at Stamford Bridge. So they've got decent form against this opposition. So all in all, I wouldn't back the Sunderland win at 9 to 1, but what I do is I back Sunderland or draw in the double chance market, which is the best price 23 to 10.
All right.
I think you get a good run for your money from that.
There you go, double chance for you to collect with easy odds on Sunderland to win or the draw. And I suppose the word you would use for Sunderland at home, Tom, is dogged, isn't it, really?
Yeah, they can be pretty dogged. I think they drew with Man Utd, didn't they? I think they drew with Spurs so far this season as well. I agree, Chelsea are probably a little bit too short, 43 to 100, but it is quite hard to find a case for Sunderland getting anything out of this game. Though Simon gave it a really good go, commendable effort.
They've been doing alright recently,
they beat Palace, which is good result.
Drew with Leicester, that's fine.
Drew with Leicester, yeah, both really good
Point
teams.
on the road.
This is a difficult match actually to weigh up from a betting point of view, isn't it, really?
It is, yeah, but there's some quite good stats here that suggest that both teams have scored quite a good angle to go with best price 23 to 20. Some firms go odds on that both teams will score here. I think one firm's 19 to 20, most are around even money. So 23 to 20 is a pretty big price on something that's happened the last 7 meetings between these two sides at the Stadium of Light. There have been loads of goals in this fixture. I'd imagine that over 2.5 goals is a pretty short price in this one. So both teams to score has got to be the value here. Chelsea score for fun. I mean, you don't really need to go on too much about the fact that Chelsea will probably score in this game, and the sticking point is whether Sunderland will score in this game. But they're doing okay going forward. Stephen Fletcher, I quite like Stephen Fletcher. I think he's a good player, and he's a much better option up front than Jose Altidore or someone like that. And Connor Wickham just hasn't really turned up this season. But Chelsea actually, quite surprisingly, they haven't managed a domestic clean sheet away from home so far this season. They've scored quite a few goals.
I didn't realise that.
Like sort of Burnley have scored against them, Everton scored 3 times against them so far, Palace managed a goal against them, Shrewsbury managed a goal against them in the League Cup, and then in the Champions League as well, Maribor scored against them. So there's pretty weak opposition there scoring goals against Chelsea this season. So basically you've got 23 to 20 on Sunderland finding the net here, because it's hard to see Chelsea not scoring. But I think they'll do it. I think 23 to 20 is a really good price.
Okay, another odds-on forecast for one of our Premier League games. Don't forget, of course, if you've got a bit of time, you're a fan of the Football League betting. Rossi is in full flow, whether it be FA Cup or Football League, despite his team Bristol City having lost 2 on the trot. Will it be 3 when they go to visit the Posh this weekend? He's got his 10 Football League tips for you as well. You can listen to him also on the Lounge videocast, where we'll run through a load of different betting opportunities, whether it be football, horse racing, NFL, and reality TV, which we've got wrapped up very nicely with huge profits so far this season. Let's move on to our third live game, boys. It's Southampton versus Man City. It is second against third. Who would have thought that at the beginning of the season? Saints at home have scored 17, and I was aghast. They've only let one in at home. 17 against 1.
They have.
I know the fixture list has played.
The fixture list has been really in their favour so far this season.
Sure.
In Southampton, it's obviously a false position. They're not going to finish the season in second place.
Will they finish in the top 4?
No, they won't. I don't think they'll finish in the top 4. They're about to play the teams that are around, in and around the top 4. They're not going to keep playing like Hull and Villa and Stoke all season.
Will they qualify for Europe?
No, I don't think they will. I mean, I was watching them on Monday night, and they've got a better starting 11 than Villa, and they probably should have won the game. They made just about enough chances to win the game, but I think everyone's getting a little bit too hyped up about Southampton. Okay. They're about to. I think the fixtures after this as well are like Chelsea and they've got Arsenal soon as well.
And Man Utd at home as well.
Man Utd, yeah. I mean, so far this season they've had 2 tough matches. The only 2 decent teams they played with, they went to Spurs and lost. They went to Liverpool and lost in the opening day. So basically, they've just beaten the teams that they should be expected to beat, and spending the amount of money they should have won those games. So.
But like Villa at the start of the season.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean. Villa were brilliant at the start of the season, then we had to play the good teams and didn't score for 8 matches, but that's a different story. So I can understand. I think people will jump all over. I think it's something like 13-10 on Man City winning this game, which probably a fair price really. They should win the match, but for me, I quite like the look of under 2.5 goals, to be honest.
Right.
Southampton are an organised side. No, I've just slagged them off for about 2 minutes, but they're a pretty decent side. I think they had something like one of the best defensive records in Europe so far. Contradicting myself because they've been playing like the teams towards the bottom of the table, but
the statistics.
But if they can keep Darren Bent at bay for 20 minutes on Monday night, then they're doing pretty well.
That's class.
But the draw at Villa was their 3rd game in a row where Southampton have gone under 2.5 goals 8 times already so far this season. That's pretty decent amount of times to go under 2.5 goals. This is their toughest match of the season so far, so I can't see them scoring many goals against a decent Man City defence. Man City as well, I mean, they're relying on one player. I mean, admittedly, mostly they've gone over 2.5 goals so far this season, but on a couple of occasions where they played moderate sides, they went to Newcastle and won 2-0, went to Villa and won 2-0. Villa frustrated them for a long time. And I think Southampton will probably just sit back and soak up pressure, and it could be a frustrating evening afternoon for Southampton here. So I just like under 2.5 goals at evens. I think it's a good price.
Goals to be spot at St Mary's, of course. Dzeko is still out injured, isn't he, as well?
Mm-hmm.
And Kolarov, yeah. They've got quite a few injuries, haven't they, as well? It's almost like, well, it's Aguero or bust in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad person or bust to have, is it? I mean,
No, sure.
I'd take Aguero in. I think he's the best player in the league. I'd take him in. I'd take him in United's team, to be honest, and maybe not Stevenage's team, but not really fit in with Graham West's philosophy. But
Get your principles.
Anyway, the bookmakers have shown Southampton plenty of respect, as you would expect, Paul. They're 47-20, almost unheard of when the Premier League champions come to St Mary's. Man City 7-5 shots. You won't find them 7-5 to win many away league games this season. I actually think Southampton could be a bit shorter. I mean, they've won their last 5 straight at home in the league. 13 of their last 23 longer term, which is very good. It's nearly 60%. City haven't been great on the road so far, but they're still a class team. Over a season's worth of data, the last 19 away league games have won 12, which is almost 65%. So I wouldn't have a bet in the match. I just think it's about right. But I agree with Tom, the low scoring angle.
Okay.
I think both teams not to score, which is 6-5,
Wow.
and which has happened in 5 of Southampton's 6 home league games this season, is a very good price. As you said, Southampton the best home defence in the league, only 1 goal shipped. I know they've been playing poor opposition, but the assumption is that City will break the Saints' back line. But I don't think it's an absolute certainty, to be honest. I mean, Southampton are a very, very organised team, and I know the standard of opposition isn't great, but I think they can stand their own defensively when City come to town. Also, it's not like Saints are scoring loads at the other end. They only won. Well, they drew 1-1 with Villa, didn't they? They only beat Stoke 1-0, Leicester 2-0 in the last 2 home league games. 2 poor teams. So I don't think it's guaranteed that City will concede either. I just think, given Southampton are very good at the back, not so good going forward at the moment, I'd happily take both teams not to score at 6-5, particularly as it's the post-Champions League game for Man City, where they had to put in an extraordinarily high amount of effort to beat 10-man Bayern in the week, so they may not be at 100% going forward. So yeah, both teams not to score.
What's the differential side between going both teams not to score and going 0-0 scoreline, which would be bigger price?
Well, obviously, you're with both teams not to score. You're including a win to nil for either team in there, which I think is which I would personally do because I think it's definitely an option. But yeah, I mean, if you fancy a bigger price, there's not much wrong with going with the 0-0.
Okay, there we go. That's Southampton versus Manchester City. Just before we have a look at Spurs Everton, the best bets from the boys in this video cast, let me just point you to another video cast we've got on horse racing because it's a really big weekend in the world of horse racing. The Hennessy Gold Cup at Newbury, the Fighting Fifth Hurdle at Newcastle as well. I know Dunkers has a really strong view of the Fighting Fifth, and I've got a 40-1 shot that I want you to back in the Hennessy as well. I think now the ground is changing, it's very big, so do have a watch of that video cast with myself and Mr. Dunkley. Right, let's go to White Hart Lane, and why not? It's a lovely place. For Spurs against Everton, it's 10th versus 9th. Tom, Spurs at White Hart Lane. Now this is another example of a crowd from the capital getting on back of their players as quickly as you can say Spurs at home are rubbish, because they've got 6 points from a possible 18 at White Hart Lane. With the team with the sort of pretensions they've got, it's just simply not good enough, is it?
It's not particularly great, no. I think that the Europa League's really messing them about a little bit because their post-Europa League form is absolutely awful. I think they've won just once following a Thursday night match, and that was at home to Southampton.
But this is going to be a level playing field, isn't it?
It is going to be a level playing field. That's the problem. I was gut feeling straight away. I was trying to find some way to support Everton, like Everton draw no bet or Everton plus a half or something like that. But then I had a look at Everton's form after the Europa League, and it's not much better either.
No,
I think they lost to Crystal Palace on Sunday.
It's awful.
But they've had tougher fixtures as well. I think they went to Man Utd after a Europa League Thursday night match and lost 2-1.
They went to Krasnodar after that, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, both pretty poor after the Europa League. So, but Spurs in particular, because they've had some quite nice fixtures actually after the Europa League. Lost 3-0 to Liverpool, which is actually looking at an absolutely awful result given the form that Liverpool are in at the moment. Lost 2-1 to Stoke in the last one. Lost 1-0 to West Brom. Lost 2-1 to Newcastle, 1-0 to Newcastle, sorry, as well. So they managed just one goal after their Europa League matches on a Thursday night. So under 2.5 goals here, I think it's a pretty decent price. You can get 2.08 on the exchanges.
Wow.
Considering Everton as well, 3 of their 4 matches after Europa League have gone unders. They've only won once, that was 2-0 at West Brom, pretty poor West Brom as well. So I'll just be looking at under 2.5 goals here. I think it could be a pretty cumbersome game, pretty slovenly, pretty low key really, and so yeah, just a low scoring match.
10th versus 9th, no goals, hardly any goals. There normally are in this fixture though. It's been quite an entertaining fixture, but particularly at Goodison Park and maybe not at White Hart Lane. I had to look at this, and I had to look at the way in to try and have a bet in this particular contest. So I found it really, really difficult, to be fair. And even being a blue, I wanted to almost like sit back and leave it alone somewhat.
Yeah, I rarely have a bet in this fixture, Paul, I'll be honest. Probably the last 3 or 4 years I don't think I've had a bet in this game. Because it's basically, as it always is, it's 2 top 6 sides going head to head that are very evenly matched. I wouldn't expect more than 1 or 2 places between them at the end of the season in the table. They're both out of form, they're both playing post-Europa League. Pretty easy game to price up. The home side should be, I think if Everton were playing at home, they'd be the 7-5 that Tottenham are, or there or thereabouts. Everton are 23-10, the draw 5-2. I think that's absolutely spot on. And everything about Tom said about the goals is spot on as well, but there's not enough value there for me to have a bet. So I'll be watching with interest, but not betting on this one.
Sitting on the sidelines for Spurs against Everton in the final live match of the weekend. Let's see where the boys are going to put their hard-earned money as far as their best bets are concerned. Let's go to Tom first of all. Tom, are we TVing or non-mic TVing?
We're TVing. It's quite a tough weekend actually. There's some tough fixtures to try and fathom out really. I've got my top 10 Premier League tips up on the site, and I've gone over under crazy in quite a few games, but they're usually just a shade of odds on in some of them. But I just think that Sunderland, Chelsea, both teams to score is a really good price at 23-20. This is something that's happened 7 times in a row at the Stadium of Light between these two sides. Chelsea are pretty poor defensively away from home. They score lots of goals, but no domestic clean sheet yet away from home. Their only 2 clean sheets have come at Schalke and Sporting Lisbon. So teams generally do score against Chelsea away from home. So although Chelsea will probably win, I think both teams to score is a fair bet at 23-20.
Okay, Sunderland versus Chelsea. And Hops, what are you doing?
I'm going to my favourite stomping ground of the season, Paul. It's Old Trafford. Where, I think I'm backing Hull to avoid defeat against Man United. I think Man United are absolutely terrible at value 1 to 3 shots. 1 to 3. I mean, come on, they're still not very good. I went to the game on Saturday at the Emirates and they played terribly. I had no idea how they won that match. Their post to Alex Ferguson home win record is still rubbish, 52%. I mean, how they're 1 to 3 given their form over the last year and a half is, I have no idea. Hull are very difficult to beat as well. They've already drawn at Arsenal this season and Liverpool and Newcastle. They were all on course to beat Spurs last time out before Gaston Ramirez stupidly got himself sent off. Not a bad team at all on the road. Steve Bruce will go back to his back three. He'll play a defensive system, and it could be a case of back three against back three. When that happens, let me tell you, Paul, I see it a lot in Italy. They're rubbish games, and the lower scoring game it is, the better chance I've got of landing this bet. So it's Hull or draw in the double chance market, which is 27 to 10.
Brilliant stuff. Plenty of odds against tips there for you on the Premier League video cast. We shall be back next week with more from the boys. Whatever you're doing on the football betting front, do keep your eye on easyodds.com right up until the kick-off of all the games, because extra markets are added literally all the time. You'll be surprised. Have a good punting weekend.